Good morning, Pete.
Morning, Sid.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Excellent. Before we get into rehabilitation and performance, I have to ask you about the FIFA World Cup. It has
Mhm.
produced some incredible soccer. You know, so
I gotcha.
personalities and stories, and you are Pete in North America. What really stood out to you?
So I'm where I live, actually maybe a couple minutes up the road from my house, Ghana was practicing at the local college there. So that's where they were housed. It's just the amount of people coming in. You don't think about it because I know it's a huge, you say like a huge thing in the world, right? It's not as, I should say this, soccer is not as big in the US itself. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of fans, but the major sports are more like American football and hockey and basketball. So a lot of these things are what we see more of. But I was surprised at how well these fans travel. It's crazy, just going out and around, you see fans from everywhere. And I was thinking, if one of these sports, they do American football in Europe sometimes now. They do like a game a year, a couple of games a year now. And I feel like it's a lot of the people that are locally there going to the games. It's not a lot of people from the US traveling. Some do, but I think that's like the biggest thing. It's like, wow, it's bigger than any event you see here of like how good these fans are. So that's like the one of the eye opener things that I see.
Right. And when you watch it through the lens of a physical therapist and performance specialist, do you notice things that the average supporter or fan probably misses?
Well, you're right about like the speed of the game. Again, I don't see as much here because it's not as big of a sport, but these guys are running a lot, and it's not just a mile a game. They're running miles on miles a game, so that accumulates a lot of fatigue. And you think about how quickly they have or how long they have to play for. So, you see a lot of these things when they start to break down. How well is their cutting? How well are they going to move? And when guys are starting to lose just a little bit of a step, that's when injuries could start to occur because they're trying to increase their output despite their body not matching it. So then you have to do a little bit more. You have to compensate to get there. And some of these guys, they're just incredible. So they're world-class athletes, so they can get by with it, but it only can go for so long. The average person might break down a lot sooner than them, but they're pretty well trained. Uh, but again, it's a different, I think they're playing more frequently or it's at a higher level, so when you're playing at this higher level, you have more output. So the recovery in between might need to be more, but they might not be getting as much as they would like to during like normal play,
Right.
I would say. So that's the things that I see in terms of this. But these guys, they're, like I said, they're world class. So when they really have to turn it on, like they're gonna put it on. If Messi's gonna be playing, he's not gonna just half-ass it, in a game, no matter if he doesn't feel well or something like that. That's the biggest thing that you kind of see.
Yeah, yeah. Any particular team that stood out to you, Pete?
I mean, I kind of already said it, like Argentina, they always were delivering, right? So it's like I think it's when like Messi's on the field, you could just almost feel the energy of like how much better these guys play. Like he just makes everybody better, like how much
Right.
better they can all play. So like
Yeah.
that's one of the cool things that like a great player can do for you. And because sometimes you can have teams, you can have like a really incredible player, but if they don't mesh together, they're just not going to be as good.
Yeah.
And then like, there's always your upsets and stuff like that. But that's what happens. Like the team that maybe they all gel together a little bit better, they elevate each other. That's what makes it a little more
Right.
exciting in that
Right.
sense.
Yeah. What stood out to me personally is the new teams, the newcomers like Norway, Morocco, Algeria. They have created the buzz of the pitch within the city itself, or Scotland, for example, in Boston. you know. It's just amazing what those teams they did. They blend in with the community, the local communities, and it was by far the feedback here in Europe absolutely amazing and positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, living here in Scandinavia, I found Norway's journey really special to watch. They returned to the World Cup after 28 years, reached the quarterfinal, defeated Brazil, and captured the imagination of the entire nation. And their striker, Erling Haaland, was
Yeah.
absolutely exceptional. But Norway's story felt bigger than one player. Teamwork, belief, connection was absolutely incredible. And especially their Viking row, which went viral. That's the beauty of sport.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is awesome to see when I like seeing upsets and stuff like that. So it just makes it exciting. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't want it just like a scripted plain thing like, oh, this is the dominant team. They're gonna just come in, do this or that. Like you want people to be challenged. That's what makes it exciting.
Fantastic. Let's dive in. The following is a conversation with Peter Dionisopoulos, a doctor, a physical therapy, performance rehabilitation specialist, and founder of Dynamic Performance and Rehab. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we delve into performance rehabilitation, injury recovery, athlete resilience, movement, and a long-term development to uncover genuine stories and insight that truly matter. Thank you so much for tuning in, subscribing, and supporting the show. Your support and financial contributions helps us bring authentic voices, real stories, and conversation that goes beyond the game. If you'd like to support the show, please check the episode description for more. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sid. Thanks for having me.
What first drew you towards sports performance and rehabilitation?
Sure. I was always driven towards sports as a kid. And I I loved the aspect of training and performance. And I was riddled with some injuries as a younger adult and athlete. And I'd always have like this back pain. It was never going away. And I felt I was too young for this. And I would just kind of push through. When you're young, you think you can do anything, right? So it'll just go away. And it didn't. And I was in my last year of college and I met PT. He was kind of blending the idea of rehab and performance. And I never really seen it in that manner before, bridging the gap, because I had bad experiences personally with rehabbing. And I thought that's why I wanted to go into sports performance. I thought it was, hey, I'll do this. I'll learn how to move better and train better. And maybe this will solve the problem. But there's some holes in my thinking. And I didn't know until I met this guy. His name was Mike. And he kind of, I said, I just got to follow you. And I had him treat me. And then I did an internship following him. And then he ended up, it was a good follow because he ended up working for the Golden State Warriors right after I finished. So I knew I was in the right place. And then he moved around. He's still in the NBA. And I began to follow his mentor. And that's my mentor now today. His name's Bill Hartman. And he's kind of really shaped the PT or the rehab end, where I created my facility where I can bridge those gaps and really see the high-end performance and the start of rehab, blend everything together and make a more cohesive, system and treat people. I can find them anywhere they are on the spectrum and then be able to push them along. So that's what made me a little fascinated about it, being able to fix these things that I couldn't figure out. And now I have more of a framework to think on, and I credit those guys for really bringing me on and showing me the path. And there's always more to learn, but that's kind of how I got started.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Pete. Pete, many people arrive at your clinic, which you explained to me during our intro chat. So they arrive to your clinic after months or even years of appointments. They have followed instructions, completed exercises, rested, and sometimes undergone surgery, or maybe more than one surgery, but they still do not feel right. What do people remain stuck despite doing what they were told?
Sure. It's a good question. A lot of times when people come in, you mentioned a surgery or something like that. The surgery is, let's just say if they had a joint replacement or even an ACL tear or something like that. We fixed the structure or changed it. It doesn't mean the things that were driving that problem were ever addressed. So our body is a complex system. It's not like a car where it's like, oh, I got a flat tire, change that, and then we're good to go. It's like, or pump it up. It's like, no, if one thing gets out of whack, for lack of a better term, everything else responds to that and behaves differently to accommodate. To what degree and where that is different on every human being. That's why it's so complex. We have to look at the whole picture, see what's driving them there, and they have these movement biases. And then we just have to see what's their bias, how is it driving them there, and then reverse that so that they can manage those things better and give them the capability so they don't go too far off into one direction. Now they can manage themselves while still training or doing harder things. And that's where we start to like get through in the weeds of some of this stuff. But in the main scheme of things, it's let's correct how you got there and make it a little bit better so you can manage it long term.
Right. Is the problem, Pete, usually the treatment itself or original assessment or maybe a lack of progress afterward?
Yeah, it could be a combination of all those things. I can't speak for what other people
Yeah.
do when they see them. I'm intentions. Everybody has a good intention to fixing something. We all have a different way of going about it. So more than one way to skin a cat. Maybe some ways for the individual, they don't, let's say, it's like harder for them to buy in, or they didn't take to it, and they uh, prefer a different approach, a little bit better. So it's like, okay, maybe mine's not going to work for everybody. Somebody else's might work for them, and vice versa. So, but what I look at, I just try to look at the whole picture and then say, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we're starting. We got to go where you last had your last problem and then work backwards to the beginning and then reteach them how to do everything. So it
Yeah.
does come down to a pretty solid assessment and then tracking those things along the way, not just saying, oh,
Right.
yeah, okay, and then just forget about it. Like we want to have certain things we track and manage and measure it as we go along.
Right. You said to me something powerful during our intro chat. People often do the right exercises, but those exercises are not necessarily right for that person. How do you decide whether a rehabilitation plan is truly individualized?
And that comes down to what I was saying, having like certain measurements. So like a key performance indicator or a KPI, like it's athlete specific, right? What do they need to be able to do? And then we just have to meet them where they're at and monitor that. So let's just put it for an example here. If I was a basketball player, if I had a force plate and I said, okay, we want to be able to make this guy more explosive in the rehab, the movements checks out, they're starting to reintroduce some jumping, whatever it may be. And I look at, okay, their force output is X amount. This is pre-injury. Okay, if I get them to that same force output, but the time it takes for them to generate that force takes a little longer. Well, now that's not as that's lessening their performance than if it's quicker, right? I could have a little less force output, but the time to force or peak force is smaller. That means I can generate a lot quicker. So what does that mean? It means I can get to the rim quicker. So if there's two guys that jump, 40 inches, but one guy takes 0.2 of a second longer to get there, the guy that's going to get there faster is the one that I want. Right. So we got to monitor it in that sense. So that's from like a performance end we're looking at. So if somebody is getting lower and lower or slower and slower, despite that they can still create the same jump or the same force output, it's like, well, is that really going to help their performance if I'm just chasing a number to get stronger or something like that? Or do I need to back that off and then reevaluate and what do we need to do so that we can kind of keep them in this range. So that's like the high end. And at the lower end, like if someone's moving, it's going to be more so of, okay, when I start to introduce load or something within this movement pattern, do they still start to get some sort of pain, discomfort, uh, movement compensation, where we start to see something go a little off and say, okay, they're not really ready for this. We got to do something in between that sets them up so they can be a little more successful. Because if I just keep building on top of that, they're going to just go back into their pattern again. So you just got to watch what is their biggest limitations, or where are their biggest biases, and then try to manage those. That's where it has to become individual. Otherwise, if I just do a blanket thing on an ankle injury for everybody, it's not going to be the same.
No, yeah. Do you believe some parts of the healthcare system are designed to manage symptoms rather than to solve the problem itself?
Yeah, I think it all is like that, pretty much. It's not a fault of their own. I mean, at least in here, like in America, we're pretty like symptom driven. So it's like, okay, go in, you see the doctor. Oh, I got this problem. Okay, take this or get an x-ray. Okay, rest and do this. That doesn't fix the problem. Like if you rest and say, all right, tissues might heal a little bit, but the behavior, how you're moving, if you start getting going again and it starts to hurt, it's like, well, I didn't fix why I kept getting hurt there. It's just, that's not preventative. It's just saying, okay, let's just calm these things down for now. You'll be okay. And it kind of, I don't want to say misleading, but it can diminish your a sense of like hope of getting better and stuff like that when you just think, I just have to deal with this. And no, you don't. But you just need the right blend of people to get together and can kind of figure stuff out for you.
Mm. And the main reason is that caused by limited appointment time, insurance restrictions sometimes, or just purely standardized protocols, or maybe something deeper.
I think it's a combination of all those things, honestly. If you go to a regular physician here, I mean, you might get 5 minutes with them, maybe 10. You're not getting any questions, and they're crammed with so many patients. They're overloaded. The insurance can be a problem too with people. It's like, do I get this authorized? Oh, I have to wait. And then, it's only going to cover X amount. So now it's saying, okay, if they were coming for PT or something, okay, they can come for 6 visits. Somebody's deciding that, okay, this is the standard, this is how many it should take. And it's like, well, nobody is the exact same. Everybody is their own individual. So you can't just say, well, they're going to be better because of this. And when they're not, you say, oh, that's as good as they're going to be. That's not really good enough either. So, yeah, I think it's a combo of all those things. And the thing is, if you don't have enough time with somebody, like how can you really assess them and do everything? Like I do everything for an hour with somebody,
Right.
even sometimes I feel like that's not enough, because you can get into way more, but it gives me the ability to do more and be able to slow down and be like, okay, we can do this. All right, that didn't work. I can change courses, not let me see you quick and then just hope for the best.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you, Pete. It resonates so much with my past experiences and actually here, you know, and I keep asking, how can a well-intentioned therapist still fail someone because the system does not give them enough time?
Yeah, right. I mean, you can only do so much with the time you have. So if you got 10, 15 minutes, you're just going to use some quick things to try to manage some symptoms, and then that's it.
Yeah. Pete, tell me about someone who came to you convinced that nobody could help them. What had they already tried?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it was about maybe a year and a half ago. Let's say I had a gentleman, older gentleman. He was, I think he was like 78, 79. And he was dealing with it. Very active guy. He was still like working with horses and maintaining stables and training them. And he liked to work out. And he would have this debilitating back pain. He's like, for 35 plus years, he said.
Wow.
And I'm like, 35 years. I'm like, okay. He's like, when I sit, do this, he's like, I just want it to be 50% better. Not, I don't even know if it was 50% better, just something that he could do to keep him moving.
Right.
I said, okay, it's a tall order, right? But he tried all these other things. And I said, okay, just like anybody else I do, it's just same assessment, interview, look at everything. What are the influences? And we came to the conclusion, okay, he had some things from his knee and his hip and even at his shoulder that were influencing his lower back pain. And we started to slowly correct some of these issues piece by piece because I couldn't do it on a younger person. You can do things a little bit quicker, but as you get older, your patterns start to, I guess, grind a little bit deeper. So you gotta work your way out of them. And I would say it was after, I think it was about like 2, maybe 3 months, because I was seeing him maybe like once a week to every other week, as we were progressing him. And he had a trainer that was on board. That's what made it really good, that he could monitor some of the training stuff. So I didn't have to worry about what he was doing in the weight room. There was nothing that was going to interfere with the rehab that we were doing. And after that time frame, he just went up to me and he said, it went away. Like he could drive. He's like, I never thought this would go away. And it completely changed his life. Like, getting up out of bed and just being able to do all the stuff that he loves and not having this issue anymore after 35 years. He's like, I can't believe it. I was like, that's incredible. Like, that's the stuff that I live for right there. So I can't say it happens all the time, but when I see people come in, it's usually they tried all these different things, and it just might be the problem is not where the pain is. So we have to look elsewhere and just run them through the process of being like, hey, I hear you. I know this is the issue, but it's coming from here, here, and here, and then show them like how that's doing that. So, it takes a little bit of time. Everybody's a little bit different on how they understand that or feel those things. And we just have to teach them how to move again and take control of their body.
Mhm. Interesting. Why are you talking? You sound more like an engineering or a mechanic in a workshop.
Yeah, you kind of are. You're like the
Yeah,
body mechanic and
yeah,
engineer, right?
yeah. It's fascinating, man. Yeah, Pete, when someone points to their knee, shoulder, or back, or even a heel, and they say, "Hey, this is where it really hurts," how often is that exact location the real source of the problem or the root cause?
Most times it's not, I'm not saying it isn't,
Yeah.
but it's influenced. It can be influenced by other things around it. So
Mm.
let's just say like an ankle, if you have a lot of pressure in your leg and my knee, my hip, it could push my ankle into a position or my foot in a position that is not favorable and cause stress there. So yes, that is a problem, but why that's getting crushed down might be from some of the things above. So it's not that we don't look at that and say, okay, we got to manage this a little bit, but I might need to address those things above so that this can be better and will be more successful long term. Doesn't mean if I said, all right, I'll just look at your foot and give you some things to hold that down, it might help for a little while. But when they start doing the higher level activities, it's going to start to creep back in the way it was because that's how they learned how to manage their body. So it's just looking, like I said, everywhere and see what the biggest influences are.
Right. Can you walk us through, Pete, the first 15 or 20 minutes with a new client?
Yeah, sure. So just like anyone else, I have them sit down, I listen to what they have to say, where everything is. And a lot of times they're focused on like the issue, like, oh, it's just my shoulder here and, might go down my elbow, my neck. And I want to know any other injuries they had. I don't care if it was from 30 years ago or a week ago. They'll say, yeah, no, not really, sometimes. And then when you're starting to move them around, so I have them do some standing tests after their interview. I take photos, I have them do some movements. We kind of see the differences from side to side. And then I take those pictures and the standing movements and I make a interpretation of my head, what I think is going on. Then I have them on the table and I check all my specific joint or range of motion tests that are going to tell me, okay, does this confirm my suspicions? Is there something different? And they'll tell me, oh, this is where they're really creating this compensation here. We might need to address here first so the other stuff can start to uh, play out a little bit better. But it's funny when you start moving them around or they start doing stuff, they'll be like, oh, well, this thing's been bothering me. It bothered me a couple of weeks ago. It's no big deal. And then I'm like, oh, well, it is kind of a big deal. So, because you want to know, because where they're probably creating more compensations. And then we say, okay, this is their next strategy. My left knee was bothering me. I'm doing something. And then they go, oh, my right shoulder hurts now. They might not think it's related, but to me, I know it's related. It's like, oh, they started to do something they could have been down on their left knee and doing something to try to pull away from it, but now the shoulder's taking the brunt of it. So that's always good to know, like everything that you can. It gives you more information. Yeah. So I run everybody through there, give them an intervention, and then we go from there.
Right. So basically, you gather as much information as possible just to learn. You simply listening to them or to someone describing the problem. They talk about their sports work, training history, sleep, stress, previous injuries,
all that,
and daily life, actually. And you try to figure out or to gather as much information as you can. And then you told me earlier you take standing photographs. You compare both sides of the body, observe the gross movement, and then use specific table assessments. I hope I didn't miss anything there. So what are you trying, Pete, to understand between all the information you gather during when you sit first with new client and you try to figure out actually the history, the activity itself, the past injuries, plus you take all those photographs. What are you trying to understand from that process exactly?
Just trying to see where is their body in space at that current moment. What is their strategy to move? And what is their strategy to generate force to the ground? And then what I'll use those pictures and we'll take them progressively across their treatment plan. And then I'll see what kind of changes are there. Oh, this started to move up or open. Oh, this isn't as twisted or something like that. And I'll say, okay, that's showing me they're managing this thing a lot better. And then their table measurements tell me the same things. Like, where's their center of mass going? How are they moving left to right, forward, backwards? And then we wanted to be able to manipulate that because ideally they should be able to go in all directions and control that. But a lot of times people are just getting pushed in one direction, can't control it, and just create pressure where they probably it's not ideal. Let's just say that. So they just need to learn how to change how they create pressure.
The whole process, it takes what, 2-3 sessions or?
For the assessment?
Yeah.
Between the one session.
One session, okay.
So that's where I get my initial interpretation. I should say I'm always reassessing every visit they come in. And I'm reassessing in between interventions because how do you know if something actually worked or did what I intended it to do?
Right.
Because there's an example, like I've done this plenty of times, where my intention was to do X, but the result was V. And it might be like, oh, that looked better. That was good. And then I'm like, but I just gave him a new compensation, so not good. So you're like, okay, that was too much. I know what we need to do. We just need to back it up a little bit and then progress to the next thing. So we're always checking between interventions, not giving them too many things. If I have to do hands-on work, we do that first too. And then we just progress into more movement-based stuff. And then each session, we're just looking at, did they hold on to this pretty well? Do they need to do this homework a little bit more? How do we progress into the next thing? And I have a plan in my head of like where I need to go. Also based on when you were asking me the sports they play, what they got to do. It's like, okay, certain sports are going to drive certain adaptations. So I want to make sure that they can be able to maintain those adaptations. I don't want to correct things too much because that might take away from their performance. Right. Even though if it's quote unquote healthy, I don't want their performance to go down. So I got to just kind of go between that line. If it's a general population person, we're looking to keep them healthy and get them as much movement capabilities as possible, and then teach them to control that movement under increased loads, rates of load, speed, explosiveness, all those things we try to combine.
Use the term movement bias. Can you explain to our listeners what
Yeah,
does that term mean in a plain language?
sure. It's just somebody might have favor something. Let's just say when they're standing, they might favor their right side versus their left side. So they have more weight going there. So they have trouble taking weight from their right side going to their left when they're walking, and they'll just move kind of like on a diagonal or something where the weight comes down more or comes down harder on the right than the left. It's almost like you're getting a good example. If you were in mud, picture your right foot stuck in mud. So it takes a lot more effort to get that out, but the left feels free. And it's like every step you take, it's like your right foot's going in mud and the left foot's not. And it could be vice versa, but that's essentially what we're looking at like how people move. And then that just shows their strategies of however they do what they do on a daily basis.
Right, right. Do your clients sometimes get surprised when you show them those photographs that you take?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, what I see, it's hard to see to someone that's not looking at them all the time. But there's really just they're for me, but I'll point out like the big things where when I do like the side by sides, I'll their right side and their left side, I'll mirror the image so they look like they're going the same way. And then they can see the differences side. They're like, oh wow, I look like I'm leaning forward more on this one, or my shoulders up higher on this one, or whatever it may be. My elbows bent more, the hands forward more, whatever it is. They can see those differences and be like, huh, I guess that is my different side to side. And then when they're like their back view, I might draw like a line down the center, and then you can see like their heads one way or the other, and it's like, oh, now you can see where you're shifting. We want to correct that. So over time, we take those pictures again, and I compare those originals to the new ones, and they can see the changes too as they
Yeah.
feel. Excuse me. Yep.
Mm. Quite often, I think we strongly believe we have an accurate sense um, about the way we stand, the way we sit, and we keep correcting or get corrected often, either by our parents when we're younger, or by our
Yeah.
spouses, and we keep doing the same, hey, you are not sitting correctly, hey, you are not standing correctly, and stuff like that. So which is hilarious, when you think about it, you know and even in the gym when you train and you're quite regular as well. um I mean, one of the funny things, and we don't think about it when we train, when you're in the gym and you're surrounded by mirrors everywhere, you look at yourself, the way your
Yeah.
posture, the way you're sitting, the movement, etc., etc. Quite often you don't think about it, seriously, But in your case, within your practice, do you talk a lot or do you pinpoint again to your client about those small things that quite often we neglect?
Well, the main thing is when you were talking about like straightening up or certain
Yes.
things we're doing exercises, our body is going to go through the path of least resistance. So that might be the most energy efficient for me to just kind of sit like this. And then if I try to correct that position with I guess, if I overcorrect or force something that I just can't get into, we might be creating more of a compensation or too much of a correction. So for me, what I like to say is this: we're creating these drills for you to teach you to manage your body better, but I don't necessarily want them to try to make these little adjustments as they're doing everything because they're just going to drive themselves nuts. Yeah. That the idea is the drills that we do builds them up so they're intentional. And then as they progress, it will translate over. We're all going to be bias towards some sort of movement or posture, it's okay. It's how well do we manage it? Can we get in and out of it when we have to do other things? Like, can I change my posture when I'm going from kneeling to standing, sitting? If I'm on the ground, like rolling, let's say I did like an arm bar to like a landmine press or something like that. It's like I have to change the position of my body. It's like if I can actually do that and achieve those things efficiently, or that looks, I guess, textbook, then I'm okay because I can do all those things. But if there's something that's preventing me from completing those things well, it's like, all right, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to create those or bridge that gap so they can get to that, to complete the full end of that spectrum for movement and performance.
Yeah, yeah.
Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Let's return and talk about the collegiate soccer player you mentioned during our intro chat. She had recovered from an
Sure.
ACL injury and regained basic range of motion, but pain returned when she went back to higher level training. What did you observe, Pete, and
Yes,
how did changing her movement strategy affect her return to sprinting and directional work?
absolutely. So the biggest thing was she could control things, or I should say, in controlled environments like the weight room, or um, I guess like if we were doing like deceleration tests, it was things like a quick step coming down, again, controlled environment, everything was fine. But we increased the rate of loading, like sprinting, jumping, landing, like it's quicker impacts, uh, greater force development, or rate of force, I should say. So as she did that, she started to fatigue, and she would start to shift her weight forward too much. So her body was getting a little too far ahead. So every time she pushed in the ground, it was starting to create more stress at the knee. So we didn't know until we start doing it. So we still have to, she still needs these capabilities to play, right? So they start up, I think in about a month now, she'll go back and start playing again. But our biggest thing was, okay, sprint volume, we have to keep it a little bit lower. And now she has no pain. She can maintain it. It's like, okay, we got to creep this volume up because she needs to be able to build up the capacity to do this higher level stuff. It's not that anything, she has the movement, but she would just break down too soon. So we'd have to do some things to kind of restore some of that,
Right.
and then let her go back out and get after it. And then we'd progress the sprinting from there. And then the longer distance runs, like the tempo runs, like 100-meter runs, consistently, that's when she would start feeling some of this stuff because it's a longer distance, a little higher level intensity, because it's not just like a regular jog. So that pounding over a period of time started to break her down when she got to like 8 or 9 of them, and she had to complete 12. Like, okay, we just split it up, bigger rest, and then she has some corrective things she can do that restores her ability to keep her center of mass back, and then no issues. So now we're doing more change of direction work. We have higher volume. She's able to do 300-yard shuttles, stuff like that, no issues. So it's just a matter of saying, okay, where are they at? If I corrected her too much, she might have been slower. All right. So if I didn't want to make her too, uh, like I mentioned it before, like there's healthy and performance. So healthy would be like perfect joint range of motion. No one has that, but let's just say as close to it as possible. But it might have made her slower because she needed those adaptations for sprinting, running, and cutting. So I didn't want to take it all away. I just had to keep her in a fine range where if she went this over this line, it was pain. If she went over this line, performance was down. So we got to stay right in here. That kind of goes back to those KPIs. I'm looking at certain measures, certain outputs, and it's like, okay, we just got to stay in this range. This keeps her healthy. This keeps her at a high level of performance without pain. So
Right.
that's like the biggest thing that we look at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. This raises an important question. What looks usually or asymmetrical in an athlete, it's not always wrong. Sometimes it is part of what makes an athlete exceptional. Yeah. Can elite performance
absolutely.
create movement patterns that are useful in sport but unhealthy in ordinary life?
Absolutely, all the time. I mean, you just think about it. Look at any sport, and then if you go specific into the sport, just look at the position and every player. But like every player in that position, they look the same. The build, the size, like there's an advantage to having a certain build or your genetics drive you towards that specific area and that sport. And that has its own adaptations to be successful there. So someone that is built long and tall and narrow, like skinny, is going to be a good endurance runner, but are they going to be good at uh I don't know, what do I want to say? Like if it was American football, they're not going to be playing on the line. They'll get smoked because they got a guy that's like big and stocky. It's going to
Mm.
blow them out. So, but advantageous for a long distance running, you take that same big guy, he's not going to be able to last too long, those distances. So there's adaptations. I guess to be a little more specific, we could use like a baseball player. I just think of a pitcher in general when they throw and they have to get their arm back, like the lay back, this arm is going to rotate way further back. I mean, further back than what should be, again, a textbook normal. There's no normals, but what we would expect to see close to normal, it's going to be far exceeding that. But they need that to be able to
Yeah,
create the whip and
yeah,
throw. It's just to what degree, like if they go too far, are they starting to break down and create elbow issues, shoulder issues, hip issues, back issues, whatever it may be? It's like, but I don't want them to be back to that normal range because now they might not be able to throw as hard. So that's not good either. They got to get a paycheck. So it's where are they? And then it's like just recognize what these sports are driving and say, okay, that's their superpower. Don't take it away, but teach them how to use it or control it at best. Like let them use it, but don't let it break them down, but don't take it away from them
yeah,
either.
yeah. I love that example of the baseball pitcher and the way you explain it. Yeah, it's because that additional range, it contributes to velocity and performance, but also carries a cost. How do you decide
Yeah.
what to protect, what to improve, and what not to correct?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, again, measuring like, so if we use the baseball example, it's their pitch speed, the longevity between innings, right? So if they can pitch 7 innings consistently, we know, okay, he was able to pitch 100 pitches, whatever it is, consistently. We don't want them to go, okay, next game, they have 5 days between their next starting pitch. And, they only could last 4 innings and they're starting to break down things. They feel slower. They just don't have the same speed. They can't put the movement on the ball. They don't feel the same. It's like, oh, okay, that was that superpower, like cranking them down a little too much. We need to restore some things a little bit more, or maybe they shouldn't be pitching that much because it's it's too much stress accumulated and they don't have enough time to recover. So we just have to go, okay, in between this is what they consistently can keep. And then we say, all right, if I do this, and this, it's always an experiment. They can last X amount of innings or X amount of pitches at this rate. If they start to drop off, we need to adjust this. If they can go longer, even better. Let's keep it consistent there. But if we say, all right, I correct this motion too much and it's not really helping them, it's like, that's where I need to look at and say, all right, we need to keep them here, but not over here. We need to keep them like right here, not here, not here.
Wow.
And it's a hard thing. Performance is really hard because if you think about it this way, long term, it's not healthy for them. Like if they're retired, you do not want them to be moving like that the rest of their life. Like get them back to healthy because
Mm.
their joints will break down.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we have an athletic peak and an ability to just maintain performance for X amount of time. You don't see 60-year-olds at high performance,
Mm.
except for that guy that was like 75. Did you see that sprinter?
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
75-year-old
Yeah. I
sprinter?
did.
That was incredible. It's like, that's me. I was
How
like,
is
what
that
the
even
hell?
possible?
Yeah. I don't know, but it was crazy. I was like, "This guy is blowing everybody out." I was like, "This is gonna be a joke." But yeah, there's always the outliers. But yeah, um, that's what we're looking at in
Or
terms of
even
sport, though.
during the recent FIFA World Cup, some players they are beyond 40 years old, you know. And there is
Yep.
always this question about the coach. Shall a coach put them in the rooster or to play the match? But to be honest with you, considering the climate in the US, which in major cities it's hot and humid, and you see those
Yeah.
players performing like they're in their 20s.
I think it just comes down to with guys like that, like they're elite. You know, not everybody's going to be able to do that, but they have experience. They've been through this enough, and I think a lot of times is it's a lot of the running and stuff like that. Their recovery, what they're going to do compared to a 25-year-old is going to be way different. They're
True,
probably
true.
monitoring
Yeah,
how much their output at practices compared to the younger guys. So they're going to
mhm,
say, all right, he only should do X amount of this or play X amount of minutes, wait, to keep them healthy if we want them long term because they got the experience. And that can be helpful for a lot of things, right? They can be a little more conserve energy because they can anticipate where things are going before they kind of happen. So they'll already be in the right place at the right time for certain things. And just because they've done it enough, right? Versus someone that's younger doesn't mean they have all the physical and athletic capabilities, but they don't, that experience kind of helps keep them over here and for that anticipation and stuff. I think that's what makes the really
yeah,
great
that's
elite
true.
older athletes
Yeah,
last. They adapt based on their physical capabilities. Like they know they don't have as much in the tank. They can still get there, but they can't sustain for that long. But they can adapt their game to make it work where they
yeah.
can stay at a high level. You see it in tennis too and stuff like that. It's like
In tennis,
how does Federer?
UFC, boxing,
Yeah,
you name
absolutely.
it, you name it. It's and you see some sports start, individual sports or even collective sport, they want to come back because they're missing something. They announce they want to stop, retire, and then you give it a couple of years and they're back. For whatever reason. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're missing the action, maybe they want, they want some, yeah, and they're back and
I think it is so that
yeah, yeah, and quite often. I'm just fascinated by the moment they take that decision to go back, knowing that they're not young anymore, you know. Maybe they have the same capabilities, physical capabilities, and mental as well, but it's tough. It's tough. We've seen it with Serena Williams. We've seen it with McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the FIFA World Cup, the performance, it's just amazing. And you see those players, 40 plus, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Now, let's go back
but
and
I think
talk.
it's that's one of those things. Oh, I was just going to say because it's every 4 years and they're not always guaranteed to get there.
Hey,
Versus like someone that's a fighter, they could always go back in and challenge somebody. Like, how often are you going to be able to be on this world stage?
yeah.
So like, I think that mental capacity allows them to just kick it into gear.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Let's go back about the therapy. Do some therapists, or maybe during the rehab, if we overcorrect a patient, an athlete, can that overcorrecting accidentally remove the qualities that make an athlete special?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was talking about, like their superpowers. So whatever that sport drives them or makes them really great at it,
Mm.
you don't want to completely take it away from them. You just want to teach them how to use it. So that's what I was saying. Like if we go on the healthy spectrum, there might be certain qualities where you're like, oh, if it was a general population person, you'd be like, oh Jesus, we gotta address this. But as an athlete, you might say, yeah, well, they really need that. So I don't want to mess with it too much. That's kind of the biggest thing because like I said, if like the soccer player had, if I corrected her too much, she was going to be slower. I don't want to make her slower. She's the fastest person on her team. Definitely don't want that to change. So I want to be able to keep her there, but I just got to manage this fine line where it doesn't become re-injury, but we can still have a high performance output.
Yeah, yeah. You spoke earlier about using key performance indicators such as force
Mhm.
output, time to peak force, movement range, symptoms, and workload. How do these measurements, Pete, help you balance athlete health with competitive performance?
I think a lot of those things now, I don't take all those force measurements in here. I'll utilize it if they're uh, like a college athlete or elite athlete. They'll usually have it in their training room and stuff like that. And I'll get the measurements from the coach and we kind of confer on those. But really, um, we're looking at everything as a whole. It's just more information, right? So the more information I have, the better interpretation I can make and make a more informed decision on like where we got to go forward and what are the biggest levers we have to pull to drive this performance in the right direction. And really what you should be doing is when I was talking about initially with my assessments, I always reassess stuff. When it's on the performance end, they're starting to train more, do all this stuff to load management. We want to check it every, week or two to say, okay, I have certain KPIs that it might be two or three of them. It might be a number on the force plate. It might be a movement quality. I just say, okay, is that getting better or to the degree I want it to go? Is it staying where I want it to go? Is it going down or too up, like too corrective? And that's where we say, okay, that's a short enough time to make a course correction so that we don't keep going down the path where we got to really take everything away and then now their performance is getting hindered because we can't train at the way we want to because I got to correct these things before they go too far off the deep end. So every couple of weeks we want to just monitor that, look at all those things, have a couple things that I know they're the keys, and then say, okay, I'm going to keep it in this range, keep progressing. What did that do? Okay, that didn't help me. Oh, that really helped me. Let's keep that and keep going forward in this direction.
Yeah, beautiful. But then talking about elite level, is there always
Mhm.
some compromise between maximum performance and long-term health? Because quite often, majority of top athletes, they neglect the latter, which is long-term health, because they want to go back ASAP to the pitch and they want to perform.
Absolutely. But the thing is that goes back to it, superpower or not. It's just if they're going to be elite, you got to try to keep them there as long as you can. And at some point, that's where the aging athlete has to adapt because they might not have that same physical quality anymore. But we still got to keep them in this small range where they can still perform high, but not be where they're losing all their capabilities to be at a high performance. So yeah, it's really hard to to monitor these things. It's not perfect. What I can say is when you peak somebody out, it's like if we're doing something where like an Olympian or somebody like that, we know they have years to reach their peak and maximum. So that's a longer training cycle of knowing like, okay, how do we peak? How do we deload them and just kind of come up and down? Where can we really push them at the maximum before the wheels start to fall off? And then we know where that is, and then we can kind of monitor that over a course of time. Versus if you're in season, some of these athletes, they have a very short off season, like baseball in
Yeah,
particular.
yeah.
But same thing like basketball, if someone goes to the finals, it's a lot more games, a lot more stress, higher level competition. It's like smaller off-season window. It's like that's when we got to correct things, like because we want them to peak at that highest level. But sometimes during the season, that's when we really have to monitor it. So like I said, Olympic athlete, we have years where we can kind of peak and valley over a course of a couple of months. Now we got a season that's condensed. So now I got to say, okay, beginning of the season, we're starting to peak up. We get to halfway. I want them to drop down. Maybe we drop their minutes a little bit. Maybe we're not pushing their volume as much so that they can handle this, and we're being a little more restorative to keep them in this range. And then because we know we're going to go to playoffs or something like that, and then we slowly progress them back up to really high level performance, because they only can redline for so long, right? It's just inevitable. But the younger guys can do it a little bit longer than an older guy. So you got an older athlete, we got to really know where they're at and pick and choose when they're going to really hit pedal to the metal there. So
Yeah.
it's individualized, and it's going back to those KPIs. And if you have a guy long enough, you'll know what the main things are over the course of a couple of years. You establish it, and then you just stick to those and just adapt them slowly as they're aging.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. But it's really hard to be perfect at it. Nobody is. Like, injuries are inevitable. We just try to manage them as best we can, or try to reduce the possibility of them as much as we can.
When you go older, I use my example. I used to do so many extreme sport, you know. You just go mountain bike, windsurfing, surfing, you name it, winter sports and stuff like that, you know. And the injury is just out there waiting, you know. It's just there. So quite often you feel proud that you have a cast, but when you get older, and I see it, you know, my knees, and you say, man, I wish I have done things differently, you know. Pete, why does being pain-free not necessarily mean an athlete is ready to train, compete, or return to a full match play?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something that's overlooked a lot, because once you reduce the pain, it's like, yeah, I feel better, but did you train those tissues enough to actually handle the demands that they're about to embark on, right? So let's just use a calf strain or Achilles strain or something like that, right? So you're going to be running, there's jumping, all this stuff. Say I have an injury, tissues start healing. For the younger athletes, something like that, we'll say anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks. Things are healed, doesn't feel bad. I can walk around fine. Maybe I can do some jumps, no real issues. But just because it's healed doesn't mean it's trained and ready, right? It has to be stressed. So that's part of the rehab process. It's like, yeah, we got to manage the pain, but we want to make sure that you're actually ready. It's not just pain-free, you're ready. It's, okay, here's where we start. Now we got to stress this tissue. What is the outcome when I start to do that? Are you getting a little slower? What's your fatigue like? Because fatigue will start to break you down quicker than anything else. So you'll start to compensate when you are under fatigue. What do you do when you're like, what are those compensations? And then we say, okay, we know you do this. How do we progress your fitness levels, the stress on this? How do you respond when you're under a little bit of fatigue? Can you hold it a little bit longer, or be able to maintain an output for a little bit longer? And then you just got to match it to the demands of the sport. So if it's soccer or something like that, where there's a lot of running, can you actually complete those runs at that volume consistently, not just one time? Can you do it one day, have a little rest the next day, be able to consistently do it? Because if it's three training sessions and now you start to drop off, we're like, you're not really ready. You might be able to do a little bit, but now we got to lower the volume and progress you back into it. So it's about training the tissue, like the tissues heal, but we got to train it so that it can actually adapt and be ready for sport.
Why are so many injured athletes still told to stop moving completely?
I don't know. They really shouldn't be. There's plenty of things that you can do to keep things going, but we do want to get them moving or remaining active to keep blood flow going. The inflammatory process that occurs initially with an injury is a good thing, because it's starting to bring in all the nutrients in there to repair the tissue, help flush things out, and then move on to help the rebuilding process. But by getting some sort of movement maybe we don't want to, if we're back on the foot or the ankle injury, maybe we're just on a bike instead of actually walking or running, but it's getting blood flow going. We're assisting that tissue to heal. Also, it helps maintain aerobic fitness levels, which is really important for any athlete because the better your aerobic fitness, a lot of people there's the zone 2, right? You want to be, that's like the craze. That's like your capability to recover or I shouldn't say that recover, but that's like your endurance and ability to repeat efforts. So I always use this example. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but uh, if you're a bathtub full of water, that's like my capability. That water is like how much reserves I have. If I take a big bucket and I just go throw it out, that's like a big sprint effort, right? How many of those buckets can I do and repeat before the tub empties?
Right.
But my zone 2 training or my capability of having that high level aerobic fitness in the background is like having the faucet on at the same time while I do that. So it's like, okay, I can do that, but how strong is the flow? If the flow is coming out a little bit, I can recover a little bit more. I can sustain more for longer, right? Because it's not going to drop off. If it's a bigger flow, it's like I can repeat those higher efforts before I really start to lose all the water out of the tub. So
Right.
we want to be able to maintain those qualities because they're going to go back to higher level sprinting or jumping or any of those things. It's like, well, I'm not resting. I'm just maintaining that quality at some sort of level as I'm rehabbing. So I'm more available when I'm back out into my sport.
Yeah. You describe Pete rehabilitation as the lowest level of strength training. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, all movements are kind of the same. Um, so the rehab is more of an introduction so you can get some pattern recognition, meaning you're going to learn how to change your movements, control your body in controlled environments, right? Yeah, we have constraints or restrictions, so it doesn't allow you to be all over the place. You'll learn to systematically build this up. So as I get that control, I could be on the ground rolling around. That's the same thing as me doing something like I use that armbar roll to like a landmine press, right? It's the same type of thing. It's like I'm rolling from one end to the other. If I go here, I'm pressing from one end. I'm still turning, but it's at a higher demand. So if I can learn how to control these things, it's the same movement patterns. It's just like what intensity. So as if I introduce these, I get better control. I can increase the intensity because now I have the capability to do it and just keep challenging it. And that's all it is. And then we just get to high level performance. And it's all the same thing. It's just at a higher intensity. It's like, can I control that? And it's like, okay, now that is my quote unquote rehab. I might have a couple things I need to do that keeps me in check. Like we were talking about with those KPIs that kind of keep things where I need them to be. And then I just perform. That's it.
Pete, a coach job can depend on results. A therapist's responsibility is to protect the athlete. The athlete might be desperate to return. What happens when those priorities conflict?
Yeah,
You
everybody's
as a
got a job to
therapist
do,
and
right?
a coach.
Everybody's got a job to do. So there's compromises that have to be made. And I get it from a coach's standpoint. If you're elite or highest level player is what's going to help you win. That's going to keep your job, right?
Right.
So unfortunately, it's like, okay, what can they do? So you have to just say, all right, you need them for X, Y, and Z. We're in the middle of the season. We're going to make the playoffs, or maybe we're on the cusp. This guy's got to be ready. Okay, we just got to say, well, how much do you really need them for? Because we could say, all right, well, maybe they can only do this much at practice. We got to keep them in this range so that they can play 20 minutes, 30 minutes in this game, but don't do any more than that. Right. So it's kind of hard. You got to be like, okay, meet in the middle and just say you got to pick and choose when this guy is going in there so that, all right, we win, we're getting our way there so that as they're rehabbing or we want them back where I was saying we want them to be able to peak as they're rolling into the playoffs or something like that. I don't want to just burn a guy out. It's mid-season and then, oh crap, they're down here and we just got to build them back up. There's not enough time for them to be at an elite level. So just got to kind of explain like, hey, what are the intentions here? What are you looking to do? This is the likely outcome. What do you want to do about it? So, a lot of times it might just be like, no, they're just going to play anyways and stuff like that. It's like, okay, what can you do? It's just like, or just fix them.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
job is just fix them. Okay, breaks down, just fix them. It's like, okay, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
People don't work that. It's not that easy to just be like, all right, we'll just slap some band-aids on. You can do it for so long, but
Have
at
you
some point, it's not good.
Yeah. Have you ever had to tell a coach, athlete, or maybe a parent some things they didn't want to hear?
Yeah, it's not the greatest thing, but yeah, it's tough because your job is to protect them and you say, listen, I know this sucks, but you really need to do this, this, and this if you want to be over here. But if you don't, like, these are the consequences. You just say, like, everything has a trade-off. Now, listen, I don't have a crystal ball. Sometimes people can just go out there and nothing happens and they're perfectly fine. It's just like, you look like an idiot. And it's like, okay. But I'm just using the information and the experience I had. This is the likelihood of the outcome. So if I had a crystal ball, I definitely would just, I'd probably be like the greatest PT on the planet because I know exactly what's going to happen and be able to course correct. But I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what happens. And you mentioned something earlier. I just want to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like when about having this conversation, you said the youth athletes when they're like, oh, they don't get it. Like they don't want to stretch or warm up and do these things. And yes, we want to warm up to prepare for a sport. I remember a kid telling me this. I forget what it was. I was doing some sort of youth training. I think it was either like a baseball or like a hockey thing. And we were preparing to like do some like low level sprinting, stuff like that, plyometric stuff. And we're doing our warm ups and I'm explaining how important it is. And the kid goes, he's like, have you ever seen a lion stretch out before it goes? And this is right. I'm like, no. I was like, they're like, no, they go out and eat it and then they go and sleep. I'm like, yeah, okay, I know. I get it. But when you're a kid, yeah, you can go and do that. But as you get a little bit older, it's not that easy. But I was like, yeah,
No,
he makes a good point, but that's not how
absolutely.
we work as individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's I really love that. Yeah. In
yeah.
your opinion, what does a productive relationship between a therapist, strength coach, sports coach, athlete, and a family look like?
Did you say like a healthy relationship?
Yeah,
Is that what
or
you said?
let's say productive relationship.
Oh, productive. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes. I think it's when everybody's on the same page. Like I said, there's going to be a little trade-offs. So there's give and takes here and there. But uh, when you're dealing with like, let's say like the college athletes, it's tough because they're all over the place.
Mm.
So some strength coaches, they're open-minded, like they're willing to work with you. I have some that are great. Some, they might not reach out back to you or I know they're busy and stuff like that, but they have their protocol and then they have the coaches that they're dealing with directly. So they have to follow that minded. I don't have access to the coach, so I'm not going to be able to talk to him. If I have access to everybody, it's like kind of going back to like, can the player play when you're talking about the coach and the rehab and doing that now, the strength coach is involved. Now we can say, okay, we got the coach on board with practices, volume output. Okay, I know what they need to do in rehab. Now the strength coach is on board. They can say, all right, I need them to be able to only do X, Y, and Z in the gym. Maybe no back squatting. We're going to do goblet squats or safety bar squats to a box instead, because this is going to help them with from the rehab standpoint, want to keep them here. And they're okay with that. And they can design programs around that. Now we got two people, PT, the strength coach, that are seeing them and keeping them on the same path. The coach is on board with that. These are older athletes, so the parents might not be involved, but if it starts to become the parents, if it's a youth athlete, now if they go to training, it's like, okay, now I got to connect with the strength coach. Are they going to be on board with stuff like this? I have to also, I'm not the one that's like the end all be all that knows everything. So I'll say, okay, they're my eyes and ears too. So they can say, hey, they're able to do this, this, and this. Could you do something more on the rehab end that helps me get to here? And I'm like, okay, now I know what I have to do to make them better, to help them get better. And then it's explaining to the parents, like they know, okay, I'm seeing this, the strength coach is seeing this. We're trying to get on the same page to do this and this. And then they might be the, I guess, the gateway to talking to the coaches. So the parents will talk to the coaches saying like, hey, this is what the kid's doing. This is what I need them to be able to do. Maybe you can monitor them in terms of like what they're doing in practice. And then the parents themselves, you educate them, they might be able to see it in practice and say, oh, I saw this, and that helps us, strength coach PT, make correctives as needed.
Yeah. Pete, where do you see sports medicine heading over the next decade?
Well, I think it's getting a little bit better in terms of that performance and rehab bridging the gap. Some things are definitely better in the sense of we have more ways to assess and collect data. Sometimes the data can be too much and overwhelming. It's like, what the hell do you do with it? I don't know if you ever looked at like some of these force plate things, like some of the companies they have it. There's like 300 things that you can track. It's like, what the hell am I going to do with all that? It's a little overwhelming. It's like, just give me like 3 things. I'm like, okay, this is good enough.
Yeah.
But the same thing with the GPS tracking. I think they were doing it with soccer or football, right? Like they're tracking the mileage and output, all this stuff. Like, you got HRV, heart rate testing. Those are like big ones that we'll look at for recovery and stuff. But just having that stuff is very helpful. Nutrition is important. Guys are seeing more things I think it's more holistic in the sense that, you have sports psychologists now, team nutritionists, the training's better, the focus on recovery is better. So everybody's on the same page. It's not just grind it out and just hope for the best. I think it's going in a better like preventative standpoint. And then some things that I'm not saying they're wrong. I shouldn't say I dislike it, but it could be a crutch in a sense that because of all this technology we have more devices, like let's say like, we got the massage guns and all these like soft tissue tools and all these like
and all the wearables,
different TENS units and like recovery tools. It's like, okay, they're all great. They all serve a purpose, but those shouldn't be like, oh, if I just do all these things, now I'm recovered. It doesn't really rehab
but
you
you know how it
in that
is.
sense. It's like,
quite often it's
the fancy shiny tool.
It's a trend.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a thing to have, is a thing to do. You have to monitor how much step you've done, your heartbeat. And you just become obsessed. Even I was talking the other day to a friend of mine, with the wearables and with all the data that is collected and stuff. And quite often he get notification while he's sleeping. And I tell him, hello, you tracking your sleep pattern. But then I think, man, you need to slow down. Because if you keep waking up, and check your iPhone or smartphone just to see how well you're sleeping, then it doesn't make any sense. So I don't want to be negative, but
No, I know. Well, the basics are the basics, and they're there for a reason. They stood the test of time. Like, your sleep is important, right? It's okay to monitor it, but maybe not waking up in the middle of the night to check it. It's just a little bit of information. Sleep, your nutrition, stress management, movement capability, like all these things. If you even do those 80% well on each spectrum, you're going to be in the 99th percentile with that stuff. It's just like, don't overwhelm yourself, but you could use the data to help you. It's just like, do one thing at a time, get accustomed to it, and then see if that's actually useful for you or not. And then you can just do whatever. But yeah, I think sometimes it can get overwhelming, the shiny object, and then, you get away from like the stuff that's been tested over time.
Yeah. Great. You're listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk. For more conversations on sports leadership, faith, performance, and innovation from Sweden to the world, visit prezerosportstalk.com. Now it's time for our lightning round, Pete. Ready for speedy
Sure.
Q&A?
Yeah, I guess so.
Let's do this. Favorite sport to watch?
All right. Favorite sport to watch is American football
Yeah. Favorite sport
by
to
far. Yeah.
participate in?
Well, that would be my favorite sport to participate in too.
Football.
Although I'm a little too old for that now, as
Yeah.
even though I'm not that old. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Coffee, tea, or something else?
Well, neither. I do tea every once in a while, but honestly, I get up, I just drink some water, and that's it.
That's
Good to
it.
go. I don't really like coffee.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I can't start my day without coffee. And it doesn't stop.
I know a lot of people like that. I
So,
just don't like the taste of it, so I have nothing against it. I
right.
just never gravitated towards
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Morning workout or evening workout?
For me, a morning workout just kind of sets the day.
Mhm.
Plus, there's no distractions. Nothing will get in your way. I feel like stuff always pops up at the end of the day. So if I can get it in, I get it in. Although I should say I get better workouts a little bit later on in the day.
Right.
A little more,
Yeah.
the engines start to go a little bit more, but
And
morning workouts
what's your
perfectly.
average, like an hour?
Yeah, I would say about that.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe an hour 15, depending on the day of like what I'm doing.
Right, right. Most underrated exercise.
I would just say basic low level aerobic fitness, that zone 2 training, stuff like that is
Mhm.
best thing that you could do, even if it's 2, 3 times a week. Even twice a week is good. Yeah.
One habit every athlete should develop.
I think just having a movement routine, like just some sort of basic routine that keeps them moving well, that addresses all their compensations or keeps them healthy in that sense. It doesn't need to be more than 5 minutes, but something that kind of keeps them going just like regularly.
Right. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Well, I think one of the most impactful books that I've read, I mean, it was a while ago, but still, as a being a PT and a business owner, is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Just taking ownership of everything that goes on in your life and not blaming everybody else, because it's easy to do that, right? You can say, oh, well, it's because of this and that. It's like, what did I do to make that happen?
Yeah.
And what can I do better to
1 second.
get a better outcome?
This one.
That's right. That's it.
Yeah. I think I read this book maybe 5 times. And it's full
Yeah,
of notes.
that's
And
great.
yeah, fully agree with you. It's it's a must-have book.
Yep.
Best advice you've ever received.
Best advice I've ever received. Geez. Well, I would say this for like one of my mentors. It's you're not going to be able to, from the clinical side, I would just say you're not going to be able to help everyone, but you can at least try. Because I used to get not that I get too invested in people, but if they weren't getting better because maybe it was lack of knowledge, experience, or maybe it's just they didn't gel with me as well, you almost take it personally. It's okay. Everybody's not going to be able to be fixed, so you can kind of let it go. That was a big stress reliever and just a reminder to me daily that it's like, okay, do your best, but you got to just know that you're not going to be perfect.
A skill you still like to learn.
I like to learn how to play the piano.
Oh,
If I had the I'm not very musically inclined. I started with the guitar at one point, but my brother was supposed to teach me, and then he just would go and play off on his own. He was very good at just picking up instruments and playing. I just sit here, you take this guitar, forget this. But I think I'd like to get back to and learn how to like play the piano a little bit. Yeah.
nice. Nice. A dream guest for dinner.
Okay. So I would say I don't want to have a good time at dinner. So I want a lot of laughs.
Mhm.
All right.
Right.
So growing up, I would say Jim Carrey was always like someone that I loved to watch, like in any movie. I
Mhm.
probably quoted too many things growing up like that. So I think he would be like a lot of laughs. Him or like Chris Farley or something like, those would have been like good guests, like just keep it entertaining. Yeah.
Nice. What does success mean to you today?
I just had a little a little boy. So I would just say being able to be a good father and a good husband and just having like just being able to live like a life that a purpose here. You know, like I'm helping people at the best I can. You know, they're getting good outcomes and just moving forward and just being able to live life that way. So I don't care about having anything fancy, just being able to help people and just being able to be with my family. That's a successful life.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sid.
And before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners, mainly from Europe here, how they can reach out to you or get in touch or?
Yeah, sure. So you can reach out to me on Instagram. You can give me a direct message. It's Dynamic PR.RI is my handle, my website. You can fill out the form there. It's ri.com. Those are like the two best ways to reach out to me. And for more information, I do remote training and PT as well. And just all over the world, I've worked with people in Sweden too. And so yeah, you can reach out to me there, and that's probably the easiest way to get in touch.
Fantastic. And we're going to put all those links and informations in our show notes. I would like to leave our listeners with the quote from a legendary UCLA basketball coach, John Wooden. Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. And on that, we wish you all the best. Have a nice day and see you soon. We want to thank you for joining our show. If you enjoyed this episode, we have more for you. You can now watch the entire episode on our YouTube and Spotify channels. While you're here, subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell. Visit prezerosportstalk.com to explore more conversations on sports, leadership, faith, performance, and innovation. From Sweden to the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Take care.